In this video, we are going to be talking about complex fractions. I'm just going to be doing the odd ones today, and I'll show you the answer key. So as you're going through, you can check your answers. You'll see them here and again here. So let's give it a start. Now you'll notice that the steps for each of these is going to pretty be the same. So once you get the steps down, it should come pretty naturally afterwards. So first things first, instead of tackling it as a whole, let's break it up. So looking in your numerator, is there anything we can fix? No. So that just means we're going to go ahead and look at your denominator. Your denominator, 4 and 2, both have a 2 in common. 4 can be kind of broken up into 2 and 2, meaning this 2 here matches the other 2 here, which means that we're going to multiply this 2 to the other side. So you're going to multiply by what's missing. That's only if they have something in common. If they don't have anything in common, kind of like some of these over here, you can always multiply each other to the other side. So in our case, in your denominator, numerator is remaining. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So up above, we have 3 minus 6. We both now have a denominator of 4. Now, because they both share the common denominator, we can bring them under one fraction, 3 minus 6 over 4. Notice that we're not adding your denominators together. It's only the numerator that is going to get affected and change. So down below it, we have 4 over 3 minus 6 is negative 3 over 4. Now at this point, once your denominator is fixed, and if your numerator needed fixing, once everything is done and simplified, we're going to go ahead and keep, change, flip, or keep it, switch it, flip it. Meaning that we now have this 4 being multiplied by the reciprocal of this. You're going to keep the sign. You're going to change the operation. Instead of dividing, you're going to multiply, and you're going to flip your fraction upside down. 4 over negative 3. Then with this whole number of 4, you can say it's really 4 over 1 because it's a whole number. It doesn't affect anything. We can then go ahead and multiply straight across. Negative 16 over, oh, and I just realized I wrote too many negatives here. I only need one negative that kind of floats around. It doesn't matter where it goes. So you have negative 16 over 3. Now let's try it again. Now in your numerator, there's nothing to be fixed once more. So that just means we're going to go ahead and look at the denominator. Now 25 and 16 have nothing in common. They don't share common factors like this 4 and this 2 off the bat. So when that happens, we're going to multiply the number to each side. So if you wanted to break it up, the only thing they share would be this 1. So that just means we're going to multiply this 16 to this side. What you do to the bottom, you do to the top. What you do one side, you do to the other side. We're multiplying 25 to the other side. So your numerator stays the same, 4 over 5. And in your denominator, we're multiplying 16 times 2, which is 32. All over 16 times 25 is 400. Minus 5 times 25 is 125 over, again, 400. Because your denominators match, we can bring them together. Now that middle step right there, you can kind of skip and go right to writing them under one denominator like that. You don't need to break them up here as long as their denominators match. So now we can go ahead and subtract here 32 by negative, or so 32 by 125, which gives us negative 93 over 400. Now that your denominator is fixed, this is the point where we get to keep, change, flip. 4 over 5 remains the same, and only one that changes is going to be the one down below, the one doing the dividing. 93, not 93. We got to flip it upside down. Over 93. And then we could, if you wanted to, go ahead and multiply straight across, but then we're going to be working with pretty large numbers. So instead, looking directly across, 5 and 400 share a 5 in common. 1 and 5 and 400. 5 times 80 makes 400. So we're just going to cancel out your 5 here. We got the leftover of negative 4 times 80 over 1 times 93, which makes negative 320 over 93. Excuse me. Now let's do it again now with some variables in the mix. Now, anytime you have your variable, and if it's a singular term, if it's a monomial like these versus a binomial like m minus 1, then these are going to match. Whereas if you had x plus 1 over here, well, these x's, yes, they are the same number. This number comes to be a different number because when you assign later what x actually is, let's say x is equal to 3, this x goes right into being a 3, but this x really is a 3 plus a 1 to make a 4. So be super careful when you're creating a common denominator. If you have a binomial or even a trinomial, you can't just add something to it. You have to really take the denominator and work as a team. Now, that being said, because there are singular terms, these x's are going to match. So your numerator stays unaffected. We haven't really bothered with it. But because your denominators match, we can write them as a single denominator, 3 plus 1. And unfortunately, at this time, you can't just cancel out your x's because you have one on top as you do below. Instead, this is the point where you get to simplify just ever so slightly, 4 over x. And then you get to keep, change, flip the bottom. X times x over 4. Or if you wanted to put this x over the 1, then we get x squared over 4. And that's it. Now let's try it again. Now again, these ones are still singular monomial terms. So this x is really 1 times x, and this one is really 3 times an x. Whereas these x's are still matching, but your coefficients no longer match. So we need to make these coefficients work together. So we can multiply 3 to this side. What you do to bottom, you do to the top. And if you wanted, you can multiply this side by 1. But because it's 1, it won't change. It won't be affected. You do 9. So 3 times 9 is 27 plus 2 over your common denominator of 3x. Because they're the same, you can now go ahead and combine them. Again, you don't have to write that middle step over there. Instead, you can jump right to that step here. 9 over 29 over 3x. And then we can do your keep, change, flip now that everything has been combined. 9 times 3x over 29. If you wanted, you could throw this 9 over 1 because this one isn't like there's no upper fraction. It's just this is the whole number. So we get 27x over 29. Now let's try it again over here. In your denominator this time, there's nothing that we need to fix. So it's really all in your numerator. And since 9 and 4 share nothing in common, 9 is really 1 and 9, and 4 is really just 1 and 4. Well, other than the ones they have in common, 9 needs to be multiplied to 4. And on the other side, we need to multiply by 9. So we should get 4x squared all over 36. 4 times 9 is 36. 9 over 36 all over 6x. Again, you could always skip that middle step. It's really just unnecessary. Common denominator of 36, 4x squared plus 9. And then this is the part where while your numerator still looks like it's pretty big, we can say that it's fully simplified. And if you're thinking about factoring, unfortunately, while yes, these are all perfect squares, this is not the difference of squares, and there's no such thing as the sum of squares. So we can't go ahead and do that. Instead, this is the step where we can then keep, change, flip. We can keep, change, flip this bottom fraction. 4x squared plus 9 over 36 stays the same. But now we have 1 over 6x underneath. We can bring it together. 4x squared plus 9. 36 times 6x will make 216x. Now we have 2 more. And you'll notice that in number 11, your denominators, they do share ideas in common. So 12 has 3 and 4 in common. This 4 matches this one, meaning that this 3 just needs to be multiplied by this 4. And what you do to one side, or on the top, you need to the bottom. Now, because this is a binomial, you do need to put parentheses around it so that you can distribute evenly throughout the expression. So in your numerator, we should have everything over 12. You're going to notice that I'm going to skip that step in the middle now. So we have 25. We didn't get to multiply anything to it. Plus, distributing that 3 evenly, we should end up with 3x plus 3. Keep working the numerator. We have 12 on the bottom. And then 25 plus 3 can come together as 28. And unfortunately, there's nothing to factor out here. And while 3 and 12 do have something in common, they would all need to have something in common in order to cancel out. So your denominator right there is going to be as fully worked out as possible. So now let's look at the denominator. So same idea, 18 and 36, right? 36 already has 18. So this 18 here matches this one here. So it just needs to be multiplied by 2. If you want, you can multiply the other side by 1. It doesn't affect it. So you have 2 minus, and again, this minus sign will be affecting this whole parentheses, or this whole x minus 1. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into parentheses here. All over 36. Cleaning it up, we get 2 minus x minus 1 all over 36. 3x plus 28 over 12 all over negative x plus 1 for 36. Then we'll go ahead and keep, change, flip. You'll notice that 36 and 12 have something in common. Let's see, 12 and 36, we're leaving behind a 3. So we have 3 times 3x plus 28 all over. And I'm going to be a little stickler for my students. If you have a negative leading coefficient here, you want to factor it out and simplify it as much as possible. Plus or minus 1. I just want to make sure I didn't lose any sort of negative along the way. And I believe that is it. There we go. You'll notice that my answer is slightly different from the answer key because I like to keep mine in factored form. What they do is they distribute everything back in. So their numbers might be a little bit different than ours for number 11 and 13. All right, so let's move on to the last one. So you'll notice that your last one, again, your denominators here need to work together. So this whole x minus 6 has to shift together. Well, yes, this 6 matches this 6, as we've talked about before. X is going to symbolize a number, which is then going to subtract by 6. So this denominator will never match this one over here. So they're working as a team, same as the one over here. So when we're looking at your numerator, as far as your common denominator goes, this side on the left is missing this whole parentheses and x minus 6. So what you do below, you need to do it to the top. Now keep in mind your numerator here is working together as well. And no, we cannot divide these numbers and cross out your x's, because in order for us to cross and simplify, they would have to match directly. This would have to be a -6 at the top as well. Now on your other side, it's missing 6. So in your numerator, we have x minus 6, x minus 6, minus 6, x minus 2, all over your common denominator of 6, x minus 6. When we go to clean it up, your 6, x minus 6 stays. When you FOIL, we get x squared minus 6x minus 6x plus 36. And when you distribute in, we should get negative 6x plus 12. So when we go to combine your terms in your numerator, we should get x squared minus 18x plus 48. So this negative 12 minus your 6x will get negative 18. 36 plus 12 gives you 84. Or sorry, 48. Now you always want to check if this is factorable. The reason for you wanting to check is that maybe it'll cancel with this x minus 6. Unfortunately, it is not factorable, so we're going to have to leave it as is. Now let's take a look at the denominator. In your denominator, this side is missing a 9, and the other side here, excuse me, is missing the x minus 2. So on this side, we should have 9 times 36 plus 4 x minus 2 all over 9 x minus 30, or x minus 2. There we go. So when you combine and simplify, we should get 3 plus 4x minus 8, 9x minus 2. I'm just going to rewrite this whole thing. I'm going to clean up my numerator just a little bit by subtracting 8 from 324 to get 316. Now, once they've all simplified, which we can actually go ahead and simplify this one just ever so slightly. So we're going to do that. Again, for my class, we're going to want to factor as much as possible. So 3, 16, and 4 both have a 4 in common. So when you factor it out, you're left with x plus 79, which unfortunately does not cancel with x minus 2. So last thing to do is that key change flip. Which means the 9 and the 6, they both leave behind that 2 and that 3. So we're left with x squared minus 18x plus 48 times x minus 2 all over, let's see, 8 x minus 6 and x plus 79. All right, and that should be as simplified as possible. When you go to FOIL these out, because these are already in its most factored form, since that's not factorable, it's likely that this one won't. And then you also have the cubic, which isn't easily factorable. And this one would already be factored. So this would be your final non-expanded form.